Please welcome writer-director David O. Russell. Well, my goodness, thanks for being here, David.
My favorite place to come, Cinema Mecca, Santa Barbara.
Oh.
Yeah. No, you guys, this is a true cinema lover's paradise. Please excuse my back. This is a true cinema lover's paradise, and I've been coming here for about 10 years or 12 years, and I love it every single time. And I've come here with Jennifer Lawrence, which is like a Beatles concert at the big place, the 20. But this is just a dream, you know, to come to a place where people are loving cinema.
Wow, and we love you. So tell us about Amsterdam. This film is a celebration of love and friendship. I can't recall a film that celebrates friendship this way, the way this film does. You know, can you tell us about the genesis?
Well, Christian Bale and I have made 2 films before, The Fighter and American Hustle, and we wanted to make a film together. So we started meeting 2 or 3 times a week in a diner, building a character. And we knew we wanted it to be the kind of character that is born here through Christian's workshop and my writing, Bert Berenson, someone who, based on my favorite characters in cinema and my favorite people in life, he's got a lot against him, a lot going against him, and he's an outsider. But his spirit is undiminished. He's got a lot of spirit, because the alternative is bad. He's either going to be depressed and cynical, or he's going to have a spring in his step and a song in his heart. And he picks that persistently, insistently, because he's surrounded by people who have been crushed, as he himself was crushed. And he's outside his element. He's a total outsider, doesn't belong in one community or another, which is why John David Washington picks him. So you see their friendship forged, which is based on, there's many things in here based on true history. And there was a true white doctor like that who they had to know they could trust, or they wouldn't continue. And William C. Hayward was the Ed Begley character, who was Leland Hayward's father in real life. If anybody knows who Leland Hayward was, the father-in-law of Dennis Hopper and the father of Brooke Hayward. So this guy was a path breaker in the 1920s and the teens, insisting this regimen exists. So you create this person that's a human who is a doctor. He's got a messed up eye. He's got a back brace. He's trying to make medicine that hasn't been invented, that veterans understand is needed to get through the day. He doesn't want to stay at home in bed. He wants to go out and have a life. And he's got a friend. And we all wish we had a friend who's a friend no matter what. And they've got a friend no matter what. And then they have 3, which is sort of a Jules and Jim thing that was tremendously fun for all 3. And Margot was involved for at least 3 or 4 years in building her character as well. But I'll just.
One of the things, and I mentioned to you outside, that I love about Bert, the fact that he's gone through so much, and he remains such an optimist to the point that when he falls, and we watch him fall, he springs right up, and it's such a beautiful articulation of somebody who's the ultimate optimist. You know, tell us about how did you guys develop that?
Well, you want your protagonist to be somebody who's, we do, sincere, with a lot of heart, and therefore they can always brush themselves off because they have that heart to go back on. And it's aligned with whatever it is that's guiding them in life, some higher power, and they feel aligned with that. So they can take a punch. They can take an insult. They're going to brush it off. And he's a great faller, Christian Bale. And it also makes me root for them more. I love when my protagonist is going through all this stuff, and it makes me want to keep going. You know, I know we were talking about the kind of, I'll tell this story. I knew that as a filmmaker, I would one day want to make a movie about characters that I loved in this fashion, that was in another era, that backed into something historically that I did not know and that audiences did not know. And we had that, Christian and I, and we were rather excited about it. And everybody we talked to did not know about it. And that, to me, is like The Third Man or Chinatown, you know? And when I saw Chinatown, I absolutely loved it as a young teenager. And 10 years later, an older person said, you know, that's about the creation of Southern California and water. And I said, no, I didn't know that, actually. And he said, well, what did you think the film was about? And I had to go home and think about, what did I think the film was about? Why did I love it so much? Which taught me filmmaking, which was what I loved was the characters. I loved Jack, and then I had to analyze, what did I love? I loved Jack Nicholson's sense of humor, the spring in his step, the fact that he was fearless and independent, the fact that he had tragedy in his heart, and you could feel his vulnerability and his sincerity. And all those elements also in the Faye Dunaway character. And I loved them, and I walked out of the movie theater wanting to be them, you know, and that's what always motivated me in movies. And the same thing with Joseph Cotten in The Third Man. I just want,
Valerie, you mentioned Valerie in tragedy. She is able to grab tragedy and make beauty out of it and art. You know, can you tell us the genesis of that, of her, of Valerie?
Well, you're very blessed if you can work with Christian Bale, first of all. So this, to me, is a blessing. You know, yes, and you know, as Billy Wilder could write for Jack Lemmon or Walt, you know, I get to write for these great actors, and then my goal is to make it. It's great. I don't have to stay at home alone writing. After 30 years or 40 years, I get to go meet Christian, and then I record it, and I captured the writing. And so we are birthing this character based on extraordinary women who we've always loved. From Katharine Hepburn to Merritt Oppenheim to Sophie Torber-Arp to Georgia O'Keeffe, women who lived the way they lived with tremendous courage. And Georgia O'Keeffe said, I was terrified every single moment of my life, but I never let it stop me from doing a single thing I wanted. And that is the spirit of these characters, and that is the spirit of Valerie. And it is very close to who Margot is as a real person. Margot had two very important men in her life. She met in her 20s. They were on a film in Belgium, close to where our characters met, and they had to be separated because it was two young PAs and a young actress who were having so much fun drinking every night and throwing up every morning that they were not going to get the movie done. So they said, you two were separated. Then they met again on another film, and she married one, and the other one runs her company. So it's very similar in a way, you know. And she's a very spirited, smart person. She gave us tremendous gifts in the edit room. So Valerie's an amalgamation of a new art that was born out of the tragedy of this war, which was unfathomable by anybody, as most wars are. I don't explain this war. It's very hard to come up with a great explanation for the First World War that makes a lot of sense. So you've been through this. You've been forged in blood and metal, literally. And veterans come up to us, and they came up to us the other night, to Christian and I, Major Randall Salters said, I'm a medic. He was basically Burt Berenson. He was a major who is a doctor, and he was with his wife, and it was very emotional for him, because he says everything in the movie is accurate, and I have taken metal out of people, and I've turned it into something beautiful, because I have to, because otherwise I feel it's too sad. And that was powerful for us. So her character is transformative and confident, and brings them into one world after another. And in a way, she's the backbone of the movie. Christian Bale is the heart and soul of the movie with John David Washington, but Margot is the backbone of the movie, because it's a succession of reveals about who she really is. That they don't really, they love her, but they don't really understand who she fully is. And they meet her in the ER. They think she's French. She's not French. They think she's just a nurse. She's much more than that. She says, let's go. I'm someone who knows how to make stuff happen. You want to get a new eye? I can hook you up. Come with me to Amsterdam. Meet these two guys. Henry Norcross and Paul Canterbury. There are always characters who know what history is going to be 20 years before it happens. And I read about these people. These are fascinating people to me. And these people often have an avocation like birding, and they see patterns of history in their avocation. So it is a true story about the history of the British Ornithological Society that they discovered. They took the 24 eggs from 24 nests and discovered that the cuckoo needs a civilized nest made by civilized birds to go do its thing, which is not very civilized. It will come in and rip the nest up and make you hatch their eggs and destroy your eggs, and very selfishly, and then trash the nest. But they can't do that if somebody else doesn't build the nest. So this is a great paradigm for our civil society. You have a civil society, and it's very vulnerable, a civil society, to people who want to use it for their own purposes.
Yeah, I love the fact that there were all these historical aspects in the film that are woven into your film, including the 369th New York Regiment. Can you tell us about that part of the story, which I never heard about this regiment?
The Harlem Hellfighters.
The Harlem Hellfighters.
Yeah. So they existed because they very much wanted to. They very much believed that they would finally be treated as full citizens when they served their country. And of course, that did not happen for them, which makes Harold an outsider, even as a veteran in his own country.
They're all outsiders.
Every single one of them is an outsider. Valerie, living in a mansion, is an outsider. And think of the range she gets to play. I'm aspiring from each actor to play a huge range. So Christian plays this guy when he took his back brace off when he was 25, I said, wow, you're much taller than I remember. He said, well, I've had a back brace on the whole time. So, I want him to have a real history with somebody. And you want friends in a sort of epic story to be separated and then to re-meet. You see? So Christian got to be this guy who was brought into this regiment because he could be trusted when John David Washington takes a good look in his eyes. And for John David Washington, who's got a beautiful spirit and soul, who I loved in Black Klansman and got to know from helping to promote Black Klansman and doing interviews with those guys, he's very steady, he's a bit guarded, and so when you get that vulnerability out of him, it's like the sun comes out, and it's fantastic. And so this was our territory for him. And that their love is real. And Bert himself, like half the population statistically, can't seem to figure it out. Many people and it was a young actor who taught me love versus need. And I said, choice versus need. I said, why can't it be both? And she said, no, choice. You got to choose it every day, or it's something else. It shouldn't be about I need you for my identity, I need you for my money, I need you for my sense of security. It should be I choose you. That's the part that counts, because I like you. And so I like that Bert has to learn this lesson. And I like that Valerie and Harold are a living example of the best kind of love you can have if you win the lottery. They can't. They can't shake it. It's just there. It's a fact.
The film, David, feels so contemporary, although you're dealing with historical facts and it's a period piece. Is that something that you were conscious of, the fact of making it so alive and contemporary? I mean, I was watching and yeah, it's a period piece, but it feels so alive and contemporary.
That's absolutely an aim. And every movie that I love from a period feels contemporary to me. They don't feel dated. They feel timeless. And so our aspiration is to create a world of enchantment that you get to go to when you go to the movies, whether it's Lowell, Massachusetts in The Fighter, whether it's a suburb of Philadelphia in Silver Linings Playbook. Here it's another time, another place in a galaxy far, far away. It's New York City, which Chivo Emanuel Lubezki creates with Alan Maris, not to be confused with Roger Maris, who hit 60 home runs. Alan Maris lives right down here in San Isidro in Los Olivos, and he's a visual effects master who helped create our world, who did it in The Revenant and Birdman with Chivo, and did it here. And they would always know how they wanted the sun to go, how they wanted the light to be, and how they were going to extend it, how they would make it go to infinity. So it feels like you're in the place, in the period.
I mentioned outside when I was watching the film, I thought about Vivian Mayer's photographs. And this is the first time you work with Chivo, Emanuel Lubezki. Tell us about arriving to the gorgeous palette, the color schemes that you and Chivo showed us in this film.
Well, Chivo, if you got, he won the 3 statues in a row, I think unprecedented, for Gravity, Birdman, and Revenant, and he wanted, yes, God bless him. He is a great artist. He's a great artist in his own right, and a privilege to collaborate with him. And to have him say, I'd like to work with you, was a great privilege, as much as Christian or Margot or John David or Robert De Niro for the 4th time, or Mike Myers.
Jay Cassidy for the 4th time.
Jay Cassidy, our glorious editor. How beautifully edited is this film? I mean, the film is so beautifully edited.
And he's done 4 films.
This is four with Jay, 3 with Christian, 4 with De Niro. And a lot of people who really wanted to work with me, who've been friends for a long time. And everybody wanted to come to play. They all, Chris Rock, Andrea Riseborough, Zoe Saldana,
Anna Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy, the famous singer, what's her name?
Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. You know, these are people that I met socially who we just kind of connected. And then they'd be like, I want to make a movie with you. And I would say, okay. Tim Oliphant, I love Timothy Oliphant. I said, but you suffer from excessive handsomeness syndrome, Timothy. And I don't have that in my movies. Although Margot, I must say.
Bradley Cooper is
Bradley
not
Cooper. Well, let's not, hold on. First, I'm going to say Margot Robbie suffers from excessive handsomeness syndrome in this movie. And I'm very pleased that our dark hair that I insisted on to the last moment, because my intention is to show every actor as they've never been seen before. That's my job, to make it worth that to them. So that keeps going through every draft, all 15 drafts of the screenplay, right onto the set. And she, at the last minute, she goes, "You sure? Shouldn't I just be blonde?" Right? Everybody gets cold feet at the last second. And I said, "No, you look pretty gorgeous with this dark hair. And you have it back, like in a Spanish roll. You have it curly and big. You have it straightened. I think it's pretty dope." You know, so, and I think she looks very beautiful. Is that the topic? What was the topic?
No, it was working with Chivo.
Oh, Chivo, thank you.
And the color palette. Yeah. That's all right. That's my job to keep you on track.
I suffer from, and so does Christian. We're just sort of like kids or dogs who follow a thing. And then we're like, we've lost our parents suddenly. And we're like, oh, wait, where are we? But we're very interested. So, yes. Yeah, we have always great interest, great sincerity. Some other people can make cynical movies. That will be for other people. That will never be for me. So the topic, Chivo. Yeah, so Chivo is amazing. You know, Chivo means goat because he looks a little bit like that. I think he looks like a lamb as well. It also means greatest of all time, I think. And he's a great cinema collaborator. And so we're building this world, looking at the photography of Vivian Maier, so you have a perfect eye. Weegee, the great night photographer of New York City in the 30s and the 20s and the 40s. And we would look at these pictures, Christian and I, and we'd say, I'll get to Chivo, and we'd go, look at these two people in this ballroom with 500 people. They don't look similar. They're different backgrounds, but they sure are close. I'd like to know their story. We're going to tell their story. We're going to make up their story, because their story didn't get recorded. Right, so their friendship or their romance did not get recorded. So Chivo was there with us for years collaborating over many meals, going over meticulously every aspect of the screenplay, and looking at the photography of Vivian Maier. And I also think Saul Leiter is another photographer that we were influenced by. And we're looking at the color saturations that we like, the palettes with Judy Becker. This is my 4th or 5th film with Judy Becker, and my first with costume designer J.R. Hawbaker, who's now making these clothes available in a boutique, because a young lady in particular has come forward and said, I want Valerie's attitude, I want her accessories, I want her clothes. And so they will be available on some boutique I don't know the name of, I'm sorry. So, but you'll find it. And so Chivo is meticulous about everything, and he's from instinct, like Christian and I. He's from instinct and passion. And so he's a purely passionate person who has to love what he's doing and what he's seeing. And so this is the first film I've ever made that's in IMAX. This is going to be on 400 IMAX screens. And I've never seen that before. And we were in London a couple of weeks ago, and I said, what is this like? And I went in there, and it was very amazing. Profoundly immersive and gorgeous and lush. And that's the genius of Chivo and Judy and J.R. Hawbaker.
Clarify something for me. Is Bert, Christian Bale's hair, paying homage to Chivo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Christian Bale, you're very good. Christian Bale, Chivo has hair like that. That's often worn back tightly, but when he lets it loose, it's, you know. And we were initially inspired by Samuel Beckett, had a big head of hair, or Ezra Pound, had a big head of hair. And we were kind of going down that road. And then eventually Christian said, I'm just going to do Chivo. I'm going to perm my hair like Chivo. Yeah.
What is it? I mean, you mentioned you've worked so many times with Christian Bale. He transforms himself. He's so specific in building a character. What is it like for you as a director to work with somebody like Bale?
A grateful privilege, number one. Number two, we have a soulful connection and a soulful conversation that goes on for 6 years. We worked on this for 6 years. And he goes to his Christian Bale magic workshop, as he did in The Fighter or as he did in American Hustle, and he comes out, and that's where I just shut up. He has methodologies. He finds a dialect, and he'll play many voices for me that he's captured from people. And I'll go, do you like this person? And I'll say, no, not so much. What about this? Yeah, I like this one. It's okay. And then this becomes part of his formula. He makes, it's all from his heart, though. Everything's from his heart. He inhabits it completely from his heart. He said it was very sad for him to say goodbye to Bert. And we kept coming. He lived in the edit room quite a long time and was very helpful there. And this is the first time he's ever produced a movie and done this much and been this involved. And we welcomed him in, and he's been very gracious about being grateful for that. And we did all these lines, this beautiful ADR, this beautiful voiceover, the art of the voiceover. It's a great art, and what a voice. And he said to me, I believe this is the last time I'm going to record Bert. And I said, well, I don't want to get emotional about it, so I'm going to be in denial. And he said, no, this is it right now. And he was very sad to say goodbye to Bert. So I don't know how to answer that, except that he's the best at what he does, and nobody does it like him. And he's very special, and he's very sincere, and he puts his whole heart and soul into it. And everybody was excited to come play in the band with us. Everybody wanted to play in the band. So we were like musicians, and it was very exciting for us when you go from world to world, each of Valerie's world. Suddenly Mike Myers and Michael Shannon are talking. There are new instruments in the band. We turn and look at each other. Oh, shit, listen to this. Listen to Mike Myers. And Mike Myers knew exactly how he wanted to look and exactly how he wanted to talk. He's a great Anglophile. His parents are from Liverpool. They served in the RAF. He's very upset about the Queen, a true Brit in his blood. And he knew exactly, he did it to the T, how he looked. The sand dance, which is a product of the British Empire, where you go to a country that you've colonized and you adapt some dance from it. He called me up the night before. He goes, the sand dance. I said, I don't know what it is, but let's shoot it, you know? And it's this dance that they did, the imperialists did. Then you get to the world of Rami Malek and Anya Taylor-Joy, right? And now you have, oh, listen to these soloists. You know, Rami opens his mouth, and Christian turns around to me and goes, wow, about the both of them. I said, yeah. And he knew right away Andrea would be a force, because we've loved and admired Andrea for a long time. He said, oh, Andrea, she'll be wonderful. And he said, please get Zoe. Can we get, I said, yeah, so Zoe came. And Zoe is exactly as she should be. I always wanted to shoot a scene between two people who fall in love where not a word is spoken. The first time the autopsy is really a double autopsy. It's an autopsy on the death of the man who brought them all together, what poisoned him, what happened to him. It's also an autopsy on the subject of love. What has Bert misunderstood about love? And that's where that conversation with that young actress went, is the fact that she taught me choice versus need. And Zoe gets to say that to Christian, and Zoe's very formidable. And then in that scene where she fixed the broken hand, again, that's something that happened to me. I didn't fall in love, but a doctor re-broke my hand without telling me. At least he told her. And I just blacked out and cried. And when you're like 13, that's the last thing you want to do. You're like, that was a dirty trick. He said, what are you doing this summer? I'm like, I'm going on a YMCA canoe trip, and I'm going to have to take a swim test. It's the last question. Do you like swimming? Now comes the blackout and the tears. That's all I remember. Like, he reset my head. So I thought, this is a wonderful, intimate moment. Let's make it a romantic moment. And then the fact that they kissed, and me and Chivo had the idea on the day, make it a pas de deux. A beautiful piece of music, French or fado by the Portuguese is playing. And you see their feet, and they're both just digesting something is happening. We're falling in love, and not a word needs to be said. And then the mighty Andrea Riseborough bursts in, as always, and Bert gets slapped, punched, knocked down. His eye's always falling out. This is something we always wanted. We always wanted to have his eye always be falling out, you know. Because I have a great friend, Professor Thurman, who ran the Department of Religion at Columbia, your alma mater, and Uma Thurman's dad, as he's now known. And he had a glass eye. And when I was learning about Tibetan and Buddhism from him in college, I thought, maybe this was, maybe he had to sacrifice an eye or something, you know, for this exotic religion. And it was just a tire jack had slipped when he was 18. And there went the eye. But he was always blotting it, taking it out, and it just was part while he was talking. And so I always, so you take things, you collect things, and you carry them around with you as a writer or a story. And then one day you go, well, let's use this. And so Christian and I really wanted to use this. And the fact that he had a back brace that saved his life in the third, a back brace that he despised, that had some role in his life to save his life from a bullet.
You mentioned your production designer, and you shot everything in Los Angeles, but
No. We were in France, and we were in New York. If you go way uptown, you can't tell that it's changed, and in Amsterdam. Those are the three
But
places.
you recreated spaces and places back in history, and you know, and I mean, it was a 50-day shooting schedule, correct?
That's right.
You know, was that a challenge for her to recreate all this different?
It was a great challenge for all of us, but we love challenges, and we're lucky to be making films that are going to play in theaters, which New Regency and Disney are devoted to this being a theatrical experience. And as Christian said, this is a seminal moment for us because our films always found a home in theaters, even though they're just movies about people. You know, The Fighter grossed. The Fighter was a phenomenon in theaters. Silver Linings was a phenomenon in theaters. People, get out of here, get off your couch and go out and see this, and walk out of the theater and think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe eat something and talk about it. So this hasn't happened with movies much beyond Marvel or Top Gun. So this is a big moment for movies right now, and Christians are very aware of it, and we all are. What was the question?
Your production designer.
Yeah, I was so bad at this. That's
all right. That's
thank
why
you,
I'm
Roger.
here.
Such an understanding person. Thank you. With a banging manicure, I just want to say.
Oh, thank you.
It's a
Thank
gorgeous,
you.
and I'm always a fan of manicures. If you saw American Hustle, oh, here's your dog right here.
There she is.
Okay, that is like a.
And she just licked her
That's
chop when you
movie.
acknowledge
That's
her.
a movie dog.
Yeah, but let's
You
go
should
back
show
to
that
the.
to everybody before we stop.
Let's go back to your production.
So Judy and Chivo are designing this world, okay? And sometimes Judy wins and sometimes Chivo wins. All artistic collaborations are a discussion or a debate, shall we say. And sometimes they're rowing in the same direction and sometimes they're rowing in different directions. So the big George Washington, that was from Chivo. And Chivo did his research and found out that this was, and I love that De Niro, and then I'm saying, okay, we're going to have to use this. So De Niro's going to come in and say, Canterbury, Norcross. I've never seen, there's a 40-foot tall, I've never seen such a tall George Washington. What is that? And the fact is, the answer to that question is it was the symbol of the American Bund, the allies of the Nazis in this country. They know how to pick their symbols. They're good at picking symbols. So Chivo wanted this in there. He said, we must have this. So the movie's filled with Easter eggs like that. There are actual frames from Ouija, actual frames from Vivian Mayer. The art is all by Linda Sterling, a visual artist from England, in the tradition of the Surrealists and the Dadas who came out of the war and had to make new sense of the world. They had to take so they said, if we're going to have nonsense, like the madness of this war, where 20th century technology meets 19th century war strategy, which is a meat grinder, we're going to make nonsense that's ours and that's fun and that's full of love. And we're going to do it, and the joke's on you. And if you think we don't make sense, we say, no, I think you've got that backwards. You don't make sense, because we're not creating a war or some other crazy thing. We're just having fun and making something beautiful and funny We think it's funny. And if you're not laughing, why are we here? If we're not loving and laughing, why are we here? You know, we're not, yeah, come on. I mean, that's really, I mean, that's, and that's the heart of Bert's character. That's the heart of these characters. Let's be here to love and laugh. It's a choice that I've had to learn the hard way. I come from a long line of ruminators, you know, and I've learned, wow, that is a drag. You know, and I tell my sons, like, listen, I'm here to tell you, I'm to give you personal witness testimony. I got a snort, a Lucy-like snort out of Roger. So, you know.
It's your usage of the word ruminator.
Why?
It's just,
are you a ruminator?
Yes.
Oh, you are? May God help you. No, because I'll tell my kids, I'll go, listen. I was a ruminator until my 40s. Let me tell you, I got nothing from it. Nothing. I suffered a lot. I thought too much. It probably cost me 4 movies in 10 years. That's a lot to waste your time with your head up your ass, you know? I mean, so I'm like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't think too much. Just, you know, find what you love. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not that complicated, really. You got to just try to get along and find some love and some happiness and some things you like and a good meal, and that's pretty much the whole show, you know. And try. I'm sorry, you know, you think there's a Wizard of Oz, but there isn't, you know. And try to see a good movie and have some good friends and try to stick up for civility. And that's yeah.
You mentioned the word nonsense several times, and one of the things in the film that struck me, the nonsense song. You know, tell us about the journey of the nonsense song. And Daniel Pemberton, the score is terrific.
Oh, beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
So the nonsense song is part of the same sensibility that came out of the war. People saying, I want to love and live. I've never been more free to love and live as after the war in Paris or Amsterdam. Harold Woodman probably, he said his character has probably never felt as free in his whole life as he felt in Europe after the war. And there were many like Harold Woodman who said, wow, this is wonderful. I'm just a person. I love this. And so the nonsense song is, you know, when you're in a trench and you're facing death every day, you're either going to just die of depression or you're going to put words in a hat, which is also something David Bowie did. David Bowie, it's like, you know, there's a word for it. I can't remember the word, but it's a surrealist exercise. You just put words in a hat, and Bowie would write his songs that way. And so Christian loved this about Bowie, and we also loved it about the surrealists. So we said, these kids, that's how they're going to bond. And they have to trade her something. I like that she's nobody's pushover. Margot's nobody's pushover. She's like, oh, you want to know what I do with the metal I take out of you? Well, you don't get that for free. You're going to have to pay me something. Like what? Something beautiful. Something to live for. Jesus, who's this person? Where am I going to get that? And Christian goes, well, what about the nonsense song? That's the only thing we've got. We made up this nonsense song. She goes, okay, let's see it. And so these three sing in French. They sing in English. They're in every event of the decathlon, I'm happy to say. And they put the names in a hat. And we put the names in a hat. And these were some of the words, the favorite French words that my wife used to say in the old days. She just liked saying randomly, pamplemousse, mouchoir. And there was a couple of them. I was like, those are great words. You know, handkerchief, grapefruit. You know, and then she would, and so we said, what if we just made up a song like this? And you try to make up a melody with Kia Colton and our French translator. Kia is our musical sort of director who helped everybody sing and then harmonize, which is no small feat, and have a great moment of joy. Daniel Pemberton did the music for the Ricardos, and that's where I met him. And he's a passionate creature. He's hungry, and you love a composer who's hungry. And I met him. And I liked his music in that movie. I met him at a screening of The Ricardos with Aaron Sorkin and Javier and Nicole. And he saw our movie and he said, I relate to this movie very personally. I've had many moments with friends that have come and gone, and I cherish them. And I'd like to write a song about it, and I'd also write a score about it. And I'd like to do it for free and submit it for your consideration. Now, who says that? Nobody. You say, what if we give you this money and maybe you see if it works out? They say, no. So he said that. And me and Christian and Jay said, why not? he said, I'm going to do something that's never been done before. It's going to be all woodwinds, which he considers the red-haired stepchildren of the, maybe I just said a wrong thing. He considers the unappreciated children of the praise to all gingers. Christian's a mighty ginger. We love a ginger. So he said the woodwinds are sort of the violins are sort of the scene stealers, according to Daniel. The strings are the scene stealers. And so the woodwinds and the drums and the piano maybe they don't get to shine as much, right? So I'm going to do all woodwinds. And we had no idea what to expect. And the movie tells you what it wants when it starts to live and walk. And you put a line in, you put a scene in, the movie goes, no. Or you put music in, and the movie says no. So if you're listening to the movie. So
let me ask
anyway,
you about...
And the movie loved the music by Daniel. And then he wrote a song, and he chased down Tom Jones and Adele to try to get them to record it, sent me a video message from Tom Jones, not Adele. And finally, Drake came in, who's a producer on the picture, because he grew up with Matthew Budman, my producer for 3 films, 2 with Catherine Bigelow, 3 with me. And he's from Toronto, where he grew up with Drake, who is a beautiful person, who's a great mix of our continent. And Drake's offices is where we prepped the film with all these photographs with Judy Becker and Chivo and all the actors we'd meet at this office that Drake has in West Hollywood. And Drake came in at the 11th hour and said, let me do my version of this song with a new singer named Giveon. And that's the beautiful song that's in the credit sequence that the artist Linda Sterling designed from England, which I think are very beautiful, the credit sequence for every actor.
And the last question is about Jay Cassidy, the great Jay Cassidy, in the editing process. Was Christian invited into the editing process? You know, tell us about working with Jay.
Jay Cassidy is someone who will fight for the movie. He will care about the movie more than you do. And that's a blessing to have in any collaborator. You don't want someone who's just there to do it. You want someone who really has a skin in the game, someone who's got their own heart in it. And so many is the time where Jay and I will debate, and this is our 4th movie together?
4th,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So Jay, I will say, Jay, I'm saying what you said before. I've taken your position. Why are you still arguing with me? And he'll say, I no longer have that position. I've taken your position. So it's like a do-si-do. And that's sort of a great double-blind editing process, like writers, right? You put the comma in, you take the comma out. You put the comma in. When do you know that it's done? You've done that enough times. You're like, I think we're done. We've had this do-si-do a few times. So I think it's ready to be shown to people. Christian was in there quite a lot. His wife said she felt like it was his secret family, which it was. It was a second family. And he loved it. It was new to him. It was all new to him. And he absolutely loved it. Margot is very brilliant in the edit room and gave us brilliant ideas that all took. She's a great filmmaker and a great collaborator. And I visited her on the set of Suicide Squad. We were talking about this for years. She made some of this art herself in her house during the pandemic because we prepped twice. And we're shut the first time the pandemic happened, and then the second time we got going, and nobody got sick, thank God, and pre-vaccine. And Margot had made this art, and her husband walked in and said, why are you filming yourself with a period black and white camera with blood tears coming down your face? And she said, I'm preparing my character for Amsterdam. And the question again, Jay Cassidy.
Editing.
So Jay Cassidy will collaborate with anybody. And so he welcomes us, our lively conversation in the edit room. He welcomes Christian Bale's voice in the edit room. He welcomes Rami Malek. Rami Malek spent a lot of time in the edit room with us. Rami followed us around on days he wasn't shooting. I said, I just want to learn. I just want to watch you and learn. And we've become friends. And he and Margot became great friends as a result of this. So Jay is a tremendous collaborator and tremendously passionate and takes his work home with him. And his daughters are grown and out of the house and married. And he's a grandfather, so he's got a lot of time. And that's a good thing, because that means he's going to give everything to the picture. And Jay did that with Silver Linings Playbook, for which he won a Guild Award, and for American Hustle, for which he won a Guild Award, which is a fairly rare thing to do back-to-back. And he's a very, very special person who deserves every bit of credit that should ever come his way. And I can't be thankful enough to him, and I wish he was here right now.
Yeah, well, you're a very special person, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Roger.
everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.